Make that big boss less special. It ain't no game, but they saying welcome to the second level. Second level. Second level, baby. Second level.
Hello, Internet, and welcome back, or welcome to the official Level 2 podcast, episode 41, because I remember numbers, unlike this guy when he does Codename Morpheus. My name's...
It's 42, but...
It's 41, because we made a big life crisis joke last time.
Okay.
My name's Keegan, one half Level 2 Gamers, hanging out with Tom, the other half Level 2 Gamers. How you doing today, Tom?
Good, man. I'm excited to settle into the more relaxed podcast now that all the pressure's been taken off of the other two.
Yeah.
Getting information out there. We get to just kind of chill and do what we do best.
Speak, talk to each other.
Yeah.
So I'm going to jump right in. The podcast, if you're new, we do a Keegan's Corner, which is my topic of choice. We then do a little thing in the middle, which is Tom's thing this week, which we're doing 5 things that shaped you.
5 things that shaped me as a human being.
There we go. And then we got Tom's Tales, which is his topic of choice. I got like one quick thing before we get into my actual topic.
Go ahead.
It's
was yours?
Destiny. I tried the raid last night, and I showed you we live streamed it and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Man, it's a lot of fun. I officially have two level 20 characters, probably going to make a third one to get level 20. My faction, Dead Orbit, on my Warlock, won the weekly thing for Faction Wars. Excited about that. So I'm hoping to jump back in and finish the raid. We still didn't finish the raid. I've done now 1 room I finished. I know how to do a second room. I know how to do 3 of the 4 rooms, because I've done them. So I'm hoping that means it won't take us 4 hours to get it done now that I know what I'm doing. Bad side is we waited till Monday night. Things reset on Tuesday. All of our progress is lost. We're starting again. So we'll hopefully find some time this week to do it. If not, I'll probably do guided games or something.
You're very much still enjoying that game.
I'm enjoying this shit. Like, you just saying, like, I wish you stream more indie games. It's like, I know, but Destiny. It's like Division. It's grip me. So, but my topic of choice, that was not my topic. I just wanted to shout out that I'm still playing the crap out of Destiny, and that I was streaming Destiny the other night, and I probably will stream it in the future when it comes to the raid. Hopefully we will finish it at some point. That's one of my goals. I am going to stream, I'm hoping to stream Cuphead. I'm hoping to stream Fragments of Him. I'm hoping to stream, there's one other one I got recently that I was like, oh, I should stream that, and I can't remember what it is now. But there's another one.
Plus?
No, there's another one. I mean, I could stream that, but there's another one I wanted to do, but I forgot what it was. But anyways, my topic for Keegan's Corner is a career path that for a little while there, I thought I was going to take.
Okay.
Did not take it. It is not video production, because that was a whole different ballgame that kind of came out of left field. Was not prepared for that. My mom thought I was going to be a plumber. Not that. She goes, I thought you were going to be a plumber, or you could be...
Do you have the crack for it?
Probably. I got a hairy crack for it. But no, my mom, for the longest time, I grew up like a lot of people with Legos and with Connects and all this kind of stuff. So my parents, for the longest time, thought I was potentially going to be an engineer. As I've stated many times before, I'm really good at math. I love problem solving. I love like figuring out loads on things. Like I was today on the way here, there was a truck that had an 18-wheeler that actually had 4 extra wheels, so it was a 22-wheeler, because I'm guessing that whatever load he had put too much strain on those axles. He had to have an extra axle with 4 more wheels to be able, or technically 2 extra axles with 4 more wheels to balance the load out. So what brought this up was I was watching last night, there's a Netflix series, or a series on Netflix, it's not a Netflix original, called Mega Engineering. Have you ever seen it?
No.
So it's about engineering big things. Like, they're talking, one of the ones they did was there's a tunnel in, I want to say the Netherlands, but it could be wrong. It's somewhere in the Alps, tunneling through the Alps. So they're talking about the machines and what it takes to figure out how to get through the math that's involved, and how do you tunnel through a thing without it falling in on you? How do you support it? Basically, it was a train line to be able to get stuff through the Alps quicker versus going up and over.
Fair enough.
So that being said, my topic, I guess, essentially is, what is something that you thought you were going to be, or something you wanted to do that you didn't end up doing? Because for me, the engineering stuff, I loved as a kid building with Connects. I built skyscrapers. I would build these weird, funky things.
That's
Connects,
why you enjoy building in video
yeah,
games.
it's very much that. Have you ever heard of 7 Days to Die?
I've heard of it. I've not
So
played.
Devin Days to Die. 7 Days to Die has a mechanic in it which I really like, but I hate at the same time. It's a zombie game where basically the zombies come attack you, and every 7 days they get stronger. So you can build, you have to reinforce your house or reinforce whatever building you're in. Me and an admin for a group I'm in went in and we had our own server and we did God mode essentially. So we couldn't die. We had unlimited resources, just spawn stuff in and build the biggest thing you could. So of course I'm like, oh, I'm going to go build a castle because that's what you do. It uses physics though. It uses weight. So you have to make sure everything's supported correctly. Most games don't. Most games are like, in Fallout 4, you could probably just keep building as tall as you want. It doesn't matter if that's a square or if that's just a wall. That it doesn't have to be supported correctly. It has to have foundation, but nothing to support it on the way up. This game, you had to support it on the way up, and I absolutely love that kind of stuff. There's one called Polybridge that I play, those little stupid little bridge building games where it's like it turns red when a truck goes over, and it's like, why is the load so much stronger there versus at another point, where's the weak points, that kind of stuff. So that's how I think about life a lot of times. So
interesting.
Yeah, when I go, do you know the strongest shape in the world?
Strongest shape?
Strongest shape. Structurally strongest shape. Give you a hint. Most things are made out of it.
It's a shape.
It's a shape. It is not a trick question. It is indeed a shape.
Square?
No.
Okay.
This can be comprised to make squares.
A cube?
No, because you use squares to make a cube, not a cube to make a square.
You have to make squares.
Yeah, you can make a square out of this shape.
4 different squares.
A triangle.
Oh, okay.
So do you know why? So a triangle is because it spreads the load evenly across the platform. So if you look at it on a triangle, when you're going to build one, a triangle at the bottom has an even load on both sides of it, and then you have the hinge point at the top, and then you bring a row across. So if you look at any sort of bridge construction, 9 times out of 10 they're going to use either a triangle, or older bridges or bridges don't have as far as the expansion to go uses arches, because arches are strong as well. That's why the St. Louis arch is the shape it is. Could you imagine if it's the St. Louis triangle?
It'd be cooler.
Yeah. I mean, you have the Luxor in Vegas.
I'd like to see a triangle.
You have that's what.
Space.
I mean, think about the Pyramid of Giza. That's why they've lasted so long. Because obviously the materials as well.
Not really a triangle, though, is it?
But it uses triangles to build it. Is what I'm saying. Like that's
True.
the shape of it is a triangle. It uses technically squares to make triangles, and then triangles are to make it. So you learn a lot, aren't you?
I am. Yeah. I've never been a fan of. So I have like one of my best friends back home. His dad used to build bridges. So I am semi-familiar with the concepts that you're talking about. I'm just really shit at math. So
I love math, like with a passion.
I'm the English guy, therefore English is my thing.
Yeah, I hate English.
You're the Canuck.
I'm actually American.
I know. But yeah, you like math, which I've never been a fan of. I can't get my head around it. I can't get my head around trigonometry and all that kind of stuff,
dude.
like calculus.
So there's two different. This is gonna turn into like a math topic, I guess. There's multiple versions of math that you can do. And
Did you know it's called maths in England?
Is that why? I thought they just screwed up on a podcast I was watching, but that's what they call it.
Yeah, it's
cool.
officially maths in England, and it's
well,
math in America.
It is multiple maths.
I've been called out several times.
So there's in America there's basically, I want to say, 3 different types of math you take.
Yeah.
One is the most standard that most high schools, I believe, from my experience and what I know from people I've talked to, is algebra. Like algebra is kind of standard. Find X. Algebra is used a lot for engineering. Calculus is the next kind of step up from there. Trigonometry is brought into calculus as well, and then geometry is the other one. Those are the 3 big ones that I've learned that they kind of teach either in middle school or high school to get you further along in mathematics.
Life.
And then from there it tends to go narrower. So like you'll take calculus, and like in college I went to business calculus, so it's just focused on the business aspects of calculus and the mathematical equations they use for businesses. I sucked at business calculus. I was an accounting major. Bad idea, because I don't do accounting.
I mean, you are good at math, so...
Yeah, but math and accounting, accounting's boring.
Yeah, my cousin's an accountant. No, he's not boring, that would be mean. But he's, he looks like he's bored.
He looks like he's bored. My mom's an accountant.
Also has a ton of kids. Yeah, cool.
So, with kind of structural engineering, again, the way my brain works is whenever I see something. So, do you know? I can't remember the name of the building is in Dubai. The Sail building, the really tall. I can pull a picture up here.
Is that the one that has all the? It looks like it's twisted. Like someone just got the top, like Godzilla got hold of the top and just kind of turned it a little bit.
No, it looks like a sail. Like it literally is designed like a sail.
Okay.
I don't know what it's called. I wish I knew. This building.
Okay.
So that building is one of the greater feats in structural engineering, because in when you come into, and you can put this up if you can. I just put Dubai Sale and it pops up. It's the Burj Al Arab, famous boathouse. But it's something like this. So they built this out in the water. And they have to go in and be able to calculate both structurally for the ground. So they're building on sand. They're on a sandbar. So you have to take into account that the building will slowly sink over time because of the weight. At some point, the sand will settle and the building won't sink anymore because it's going to be too compact. They have to take into account what the materials are below where they're going, kind of the geography, I think is the right word. I don't know if that's the right word for it, but the history of the ground underneath it. Then on top of that, you have to calculate the structure of how you're going to build the building. So in this case, since it's a sail, how are you going to support that weird, odd shape? The reason most buildings are square or rectangles is because you can use triangles to make squares and rectangles. And that's the most structurally sound, compact building to make. Arches and domes are the second one. That's why if you look at like ancient buildings, all of them have domes because at the time that was the most structurally sound building they could think of, and they've lasted forever. Yeah, kind of like an igloo. So, with a building like this, you do this. Do you think of the underground, the foundation? How deep do you have to go underground to keep it stable? What's the material underground? What are you going to build? How are you going to support it? So, a building like the World Trade Centers back in the day. Most people think they're supported by their outside walls, but they were not. There's actually the column, and one of the reasons 9/11 was as deadly as it was, outside of obviously a plane hitting a building, but the reason people couldn't escape is because all the structure was supported in the middle of the building, which happens a lot because in a case like that, people want to have windows on the outside to look out. Windows aren't glass or whatever material you use for a window. At that point, I don't think they use glass. They use some special material. Is not as strong as a concrete building or a brick building, or whatever it may be. Concrete, as of right now, is the strongest building material we tend to use. Metals are now coming in. The problem with metals is obviously weatherproofing is harder. Concrete's a bit easier. So in this aspect, they came in, and you can see where they have the pillars on the outside is how they're supporting the building. You then have to take into account wind directions, wind speeds, and if you're in I
mean, if it's a sail,
earthquake fault,
if the wind gets really bad, does the island just kind of
goes away
into the sunset?
Well, so in California, when I lived in California, I found this really interesting. Was building codes have earthquake proof? Well, I don't say proof because they're not proof, but earthquake regulations in mind, where a building has to be able to move. I can't remember the exact number, but I want to say it's like 5 to 6 inches laterally with the ground shaking. And that's because if the building moves, it's less likely to break and crumble. Versus if it's rigid and it starts moving, eventually it'll just pop out of place and it'll collapse on itself and or fall over. So that's, I don't know
where
you
build in the ability for a building to move.
Flexibility, materials.
Gotcha.
So it's all based on materials. So most people, when they think of what do you think most buildings are made out of? Let's start with that.
Steel.
Steel. What else?
Concrete.
Concrete, steel. That's most older buildings, yes. So anything,
I'm old, Keegan.
anything, most buildings built in the 70s and 80s that are large, the skyscrapers we think of, like the Empire State Building, the World Trade Centers back then, anything like that, yes.
Iron?
Iron, no, because iron rusts. So you get iron oxide, you've got some rust going on, and you weaken the structure falls down, and you're done.
Gotcha.
The other thing that brought this on, essentially, too, was the fact that most of the U.S. bridges are on the verge of collapse. And that's not because of building materials, that's because of overuse. So an example on a road or a bridge, you have, when you design those, you have a specific number of, I feel like I'm in a class right now. You learning?
I'm learning.
You guys learning?
I'm learning.
on a road or a bridge, you have a specific number of vehicles you have in mind when you construct that. So say on a bridge, so we had the, what was the one before Stan Musial? We had the Stan Musial bridge rebuilding hill. I can't remember what it was, but there was another bridge before Stan Musial bridge was there, and they only counted for X amount of traffic. Well, if you exceed that traffic, you're exceeding that bridge's limits, you're eventually wearing stuff down to the point where you can't refurbish it, you have to replace it. And most of the time, money is not a thing people have to replace stuff. So,
especially a bridge.
Do you remember a few years ago the Minneapolis bridge that collapsed? There was basically a fault in one of the things, and there's a video of it where literally the bridge section just fell down into the water.
No, the only bridge collapsing that I'm familiar with is the one from Point Pleasant, the Mothman Prophecy one, where everyone said that they saw like a giant moth flying through the sky, like a Mothman thing, and then the bridge collapsed.
Do you remember the Golden Gate Bridge video where they show how much that moves?
I've been on that bridge.
There's one where it just like swings. I don't know if it's the Golden. It might be. I think it's the Golden Gate.
There's two over in San Francisco. There's the Bay Bridge and the Golden Gate.
One of the two. One of the two just swings a lot.
I imagine the Golden Gate.
In it because it has to.
Golden Gate looks like it's made out of iron. I don't think it is. But
No,
it looks like
it would be because in that you have water.
Yeah.
Water and iron make rust again, and you lose building materials there. So like highways and stuff, one of the complaints people have a lot of the times is our road system is very degraded and all that, and bridges are degraded. But that partially runs into having funds to keep them up. There's more and more vehicles. Our vehicles are a lot heavier. We're transporting more and more things.
Infrastructure budgets on,
or they don't have it.
The military instead of on fixing the.
Or they don't have it. I mean, that's the other thing is if you're in a place that is a small population, you're going to put that towards a school versus a road, probably 9 times out of 10.
Yeah.
If you're doing it right, in my opinion. But I also think this country has an infrastructure problem in general. I don't even want to go into this. Is where like city skylines, designing a road system.
I read somewhere
it's very complicated
that
and it's
they're
awesome.
using city skylines to actually make new cities and towns. Like they're using that as their basis for.
The only downside to that is the traffic flow through that is not 100% accurate. But yeah, I've seen that too.
Base, though.
Oh yeah. So like traffic flow isn't. I feel like I'm just going to talk engineering here. It's a whole different ball game too, because traffic flow you have to take into account. So most intersections back in the day, if you look, are cloverleaf. So you cross traffic. Have you ever been to? I don't know what they call them, but there's intersections now. I think Houston is the one. The Houston intersection is the most well known. I think it's Houston intersection.
And what does that do?
Hold on, I gotta spell. Intersection. It makes it so you don't have to cross lanes. I think it's Houston. Yeah. So here's another picture. So notice that these cross over each other, but they don't cross each other's traffic lanes when they go to merge. So the biggest slowdown to any sort of traffic point is vehicles slowing down to merge. Because other than that, theoretically, if you're all going, nobody does this, but say you're all going 60 miles an hour, theoretically nothing should stop.
Right.
But why do you stop or slow down? It's because somebody in front of you slowed down or letting stuff in. Yeah. So that's where they're now doing a lot of research into intersection types and how they function. And like I said, cloverleaf for the U.S. interstate in 1945 was the most well-known one. That's why all of our interstate exits are usually cloverleaf. But they've gotten more and more complicated, as you can tell by this. And they've been able to do it because they've had lighter materials so they can build higher and don't have to worry about it. Because in a case like this, you have to make sure that it doesn't fall on the road below it, all that kind of stuff. So, I don't know. I'm an engineering fan. I've always been an engineering fan, and I can't really explain it. Like I said, I was watching Mega Engineering the other day, or Engineers, or whatever they call it, and I was like, I forgot how much I loved that kind of stuff. Like, and I still do it, like you said, in video games without thinking about it.
Would you consider pursuing it still, or do you think you're past that point now? Because I know that you have essentially a retail job, same as me. Yeah. And obviously we have this and some other stuff, but is it something you would go to school for? Are you done with school? Like,
I mean,
is it more
my mom says I should go back to school.
Yeah.
It's more of I guess more of a hobby. It's one of those things where like you watch documentaries on it and I research stuff. Like when new buildings come out, I look at kind of how they're made, materials they're made out of, why they built it the way they did, the shape of them. Interior design, not like interior design as in like show, like floor, but like interior design as in how is the building structured? What are your layers? How do they layer it? All that kind of stuff. Especially now, like I think Los Angeles just got the Olympics for 2024, 22. We just got the Olympics for something. And I will be watching that extremely closely because in that instance, you're building a lot of large structures in a short period of time for a lot of money. And how do they build it to where it's gonna withstand the amount of traffic? Because the World Cup brings a lot of people in. What are they gonna do with it after the fact? What is it gonna be used for? Because most Olympic stadiums then don't get used for anything after the fact.
Yeah, there's been a lot of places that got completely broken from hosting the Olympics.
Oh yeah,
Brazil is still a shit hole of a mess.
Oh, I mean Brazil has had a lot of issues before then too.
Yeah, I mean,
but it compounds it.
There was a lot of pictures taken around the Brazil Olympics from the what do they call them, favelas, where like just young kids are like looking at this giant stadium with the with all the lights and everything, and they're just stuck in these slums, just kind of like wondering.
Yeah, but if you look at what they're becoming now with those stadiums are becoming the same thing. There's pictures of Olympic stadiums from years past that are now overgrown because think about it, you're building these stadiums for a specific event. When an event ends, how do you sustain and support those 5 stadiums you just built? You can't unless you have some sort of team or some sort of sports to fill with it.
Musician,
even music though would be hard because how often do you have a concert?
Yeah,
like that's the other thing is like these things are you build so much for this one event, and I've been a proponent of having the Olympics in the same country but in different cities, so that way one city doesn't take the brunt of everything. Of like, okay, now Seoul, South Korea has 5 Olympic stadiums, but they only have 2 teams that could fill them, and even then, fill them is who knows if they could actually fill them up. So, I don't know. It's just been something I've been watching a lot of engineering shows lately, and I've rekindled my love for it. As you've so said, I build stuff in video games all the time, and I love it. And I think that's where a lot of it comes from. Is why can't I build this? What makes a building the way it goes? How does it tick? That kind of thing. And I've always been a tinkerer, a hands-on person, where like my bike, I had a brake issue with my bike years ago. I took my brakes and bike apart, and I learned how the system worked, and I was able to put it back together. First time was a bit sketchy. We had to do some trial and error there, but thank God there's 2 brakes on your bike and not
I've had
one.
to try and fix bike brakes before. It's not the easiest task to get the what do you call it, the slack, like the lack of it, I should say, like getting that all stuff all tight and perfect.
That was what I ran into. And then I've done stuff with the computers, obviously. Computers are a whole different ball game, though.
Tell me about it.
Because they're all prefab parts that just stick together, kind of like Legos at this point. But when you open it up and just see for the first time, I mean, opening up a TV for the first time is really cool. Opening up any sort of electronics is really cool. But I'm more of a mechanical fan. Like, I love looking back at stuff from the 30s to 60s because it's all mechanical based for the most part, and seeing how they came up with what they did for the system they had. So airplanes are a prime example of a very big engineering feat.
Steam engine.
Do you know how many moving parts are on an airplane at any point in time? Over 100,000 parts move on an airplane during one flight.
I thought steam engines were pretty big too, like sort of learning how to harness the power of coal and all that kind of stuff was always. And
now obviously wind power, solar power, all that kind of stuff. But on an airplane, you used to have on an airplane you have the flaps, and then you have the rudder, and those used to be controlled by foot pedals by the pilots that would literally pull a mechanism and it would move the rudder or move the flaps whichever way they wanted to go. The reason they switched to computerized things is because the line was severed one time on a crash with a DC-9 that severed the line between the pilot and the rudder. And if you have no control over an airplane in the air, you're kind of in trouble. I think he only had flaps. Because I think the tail had the top part of the tail had snapped off or something. Yes. So they had that. So now everything's electronic, and now there's a debate going on of is everything too electronic in aviation, where the pilots don't know how to fly manually.
Yeah, I mean, electronics, even though that's the way the future's going, self-driving cars and things like that, I think we're at a point where, even if you have the issue that you were describing with the flaps, and you move that all entirely onto a computer-based system, it's not like computers are completely
fail.
Impervious.
Yeah, computers fail
to problems.
But an airplane is built with redundancy inside of it. So another fun engineering fact about an airplane is they can fly on one engine. They can. They recommend two.
Do they just do circles?
Well, you control power.
That's a joke.
And then you flap.
Okay.
But they recommend two. Obviously, it's the rule of thumb. If it's two on the same side that fail, your emergency situation. If it's one that fails, you're technically an emergency situation according to aviation law, but it's not. Theoretically not a scary situation unless that engine breaks apart and has debris and knocks off a part of the wing or whatever it may be. That's where you have the issue from there.
Gotcha.
So it's like I said, I love researching this kind of stuff. I've read papers on this kind of stuff in my free time just because I'm a dork and I love engineering. And airplanes, buildings, and roads to me are kind of like the coolest things man has done because they stay so long compared to other things. Like
test of time.
Think of us, video games, like DVDs. DVDs are gonna go away VHS tapes are going to go away. They degrade over time, especially VHS tapes. They degrade over time pretty quickly. Roads are theoretically, if maintained, will last thousands of years. Even if they're not maintained, they still last quite a while. The average road life is 45 years, I believe, is what the estimate is what it should be based on asphalt.
I watched a documentary the other day about the death of physical media in terms of like VHS and things like that, and how, you know, like VHS versus Betamax, and even though Betamax was the superior quality, like why VHS won out.
It's cheaper.
Cheaper and no, it was actually longer play times, and it was adopted by the porn industry first.
Yeah.
But just kind of, and it was cheaper.
Yeah, that's why the porn industry adopted, because it was cheaper.
Yeah, but it was. It's interesting to sort of see how all that moves now to the fact that almost everything is digital as far as electronics go nowadays.
In your hard drive, if your hard drive fails, like that's it. Like that's where going from mechanical based things to a physical based thing, or to a non-mechanical based thing. Yeah, solid piece of electronics is scary, because in computers now, or in any piece of solid machinery, if one part fails, the whole thing does, which is why, again, going back to the airplanes, they're built with redundancy. So say on an airplane the altimeter fails. They theoretically have a couple backups that it's going to happen before it gets to dire situations. I was watching a documentary the other day that talked about that the odds of you being on a plane that has some sort of failure. I've been on 2 that have had some sort of failure, but the odds of being on it is like 1 in a trillion, which is crazy to think. But I've been on the 2 I was on. One, the engine had an issue and went out. That was fun. We hit a bird and it took the engine out. The second one was the landing gear. The pilot didn't know. It was when I was flying back from seeing my parents. The landing gear has a sensor when it's up, and there's a sensor when it's locked. And the pilot didn't know if he put the landing gear up, but it didn't lock, so he couldn't tell. And they do visual, like when we went back, we ended up coming back to St. Louis, and they did visual inspection. He put it back down for the landing, but he couldn't tell if it was all the way down either, because the sensor was broken. Never found out what happened to that. I'm gonna guess probably dirt or something got in there.
Well, you're alive, so
yeah.
Wasn't all
but when you fly back in, they do a visual inspection of it and just say, hey, this is what I see. This is what's going on, and hope to God you can land the airplane. There's a famous JetBlue one where the wheel was stuck sideways where the guy landed, and they were expecting the wheel, when they landed, they were expecting it to collapse because of the weight, but it actually stayed intact and slid across. And it's really cool the way the pattern of how it slid across the runway, it literally just flattened the wheel and the rim, or whatever you call it on a plane. I guess I'm guessing it's a rim, and just the way it ended up looked like it was just sitting on a stand, like a truck dolly type thing. So
good for them.
I don't know. I just wanted to kind of go on a rant about engineering.
No, it's interesting. I was not expecting that today. So thanks for sharing.
I love me some engineering, and if you guys have engineering questions, I will try and answer them.
Sounds like the guy to ask.
I'm not
a house built. This guy.
Yeah, I do love. I mean, I have built a house.
Have you?
Yeah, we went on a mission trip in Puerto Rico, and I helped build we built the wall, like the outside wall, structural wall. We then built the interior bathroom, so it was all supported from the bathroom. Was the load-bearing wall.
It's that poor Puerto Rico.
Yeah, I don't think that house is probably there anymore. I haven't seen. It was we built it in San Juan, is where we built it. So
well then, for all your engineering needs, please reach out to Mr. Keegan Vi.
I'm not that smart of an engineer. Go to a real engineer before you come to me.
Yeah, make him a second choice, maybe.
Yeah. If you have a question though about like loads and building materials and all the kind of stuff, I would gladly answer.
Never ask the internet if they have a question about loads. It's not going to end well for you.
It's structural loads. Okay. So if I put my hand on top of your mic, how long will it take before this gives out and flips forward?
I don't know.
That's what you can find out. There's actually ways to measure that. We don't have it here because we're not cool enough. Science and math are hand in hand.
I like science. I don't like math. All right, so thanks for that. Moving on to the middle section of the show this week. So you did a bit of a personal chit-chat last week, getting to know you segment. So I thought I'd do one too. Mostly just because it hit me like last thing at night, which is usually when I remember that I need something for the podcast. But also I just thought, you know what? This one is one that you can ask me questions, and also I can reflect on some things. And then, so I thought it would be cool. So basically what I like to talk about is 5 things that shaped me as a person. 'Cause I am
pizza, beer.
That definitely didn't help. I am a 34-year-old, I think, 34-year-old middle-aged white English guy.
I almost made a drugs joke, but that is actually.
Oh yeah, it's on the list. It's on the list.
I almost made a joke. I was like, I don't know if I should say that.
No,
but it's on the list.
So and they were kind of in order, in a way, because this is kind of just going from like young to old, and the things, just big kind of impactful things that tweaked my personality, because I was kind of break down like, how did I become who I am, and
which is a terrifying thing to think about.
It really is. And I started thinking about it and just kind of breaking down the different elements that build up together to make me, and I think that all of these are really viable parts of those elements. So I thought we would talk about them, and then you can ask me questions if you want to during. So does that sound cool?
Yes.
Okay, you sound uncertain. You're just reading my list.
Yeah.
All right, so the first thing that shaped me as a human being is my family upbringing, because I did not have a traditional family. I was an only child. I was born on Christmas Day, 1982.
That's a traditional family. There's no such thing as a traditional family.
Well, like, let me explain. So my mom couldn't have children. She was physically told by the doctor, "You will never have children ever," and then here I am. So that was a weird one. So yeah, I was born on Christmas Day. I was the first baby born that day. I got my room decorated all out special because I was the first Christmas baby, and I came out at a whopping 9.11. 9 pounds 11 ounces. So
do they weigh babies in pounds and ounces over there? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know if you guys did kilograms.
No, pounds and ounces. So yeah, I was 9 pounds 11 ounces, which is pretty fat baby.
I don't remember what I was.
Most people are like 5 or 6.
Yeah, it was not that.
9.
Dude, Dexter, Ariel's kid was pretty close to you then.
Yeah.
He's a big kid though.
I mean, yeah, it is what it is.
You're like, I had no say in the matter.
So growing up as an only child is weird, because you grew up with siblings, or at least one sibling, and then another one joined you. But growing up,
he decided to just come along.
He just
yeah. I mean, well, kind of. Similar. My parents didn't think so. Not to take away from my mom, miscarried before then, and she didn't think she'd have kids after that. And then Caden kind of happened. Like it wasn't an accident. It just was not planned. Let's
hope Caden's.
That's how we say it. Oh, he knows.
So the other thing is that my family was very weird. So without meaning to get into too much hyper detail in it, my granddad was rich, like quite significantly rich. He owned a steel company in the...
Steel is used to build bridges.
I know, see? That's why it was my first
building.
guess. So he owned a steel company back home that was called Mifflin Construction. And
like Dunder Mifflin?
Yes. Yeah,
okay.
That exact same spelling of Mifflin. My maiden name, my mom's maiden name
was Dunder.
Is Mifflin.
So
anyway, his name was Ernie, my granddad. This is such an awesome old man name.
I have Otis.
Nice.
There's another one that I like.
Yeah.
And what was his name? My great grandpa was like, I want to say Ethiopia, but that's a country. But it's something like that.
Good old great grandpa Ethiopia. It's coming over today.
Something like that. It's something really close to that, though.
No, his name was Ernie or Ernest, and he was rich, man. I mean, he basically made this steel company by himself and built it up, and it became one of the biggest steel companies in England. And he had 5 kids, 2 male and 3 female. And my mom was one of the female. Her auntie.
That's good. She's one of the female, because if she's one of the male, I'd question things.
It would be questionable. My auntie and her are identical twins, and then they have a younger sister who still looks very similar, but not identical. And basically, long story short, it was a weird upbringing, because like our family was always a little bit disconnected from our greater family, or at least I was. Mm-hmm. So whenever my mom and dad wanted to go and see like other family members, like I would see the immediate ones, like the identical twin aunt that I have, and then my dad's side as well. And I got on with the cousins, and honestly the cousins were like the closest thing that I had to actual siblings.
I love my cousins.
Yeah, I grew up around those were like the closest thing I had to like a brother.
It's weird for me now, because I now live closer to my family, and I've become closer to my cousins, because they're in the area, versus before I'd fly in once or twice a year and see them.
Yeah.
It's like, it's weird how things have changed.
I was just an antisocial kid, and my family was pretty antisocial too. So whenever we got asked to go anywhere, we'd be like, yeah, and just never go. And I still do that to this day, where I kind of. I'm the guy that will like be really excited about it, the thing that you want me to do, and honestly genuinely do want to do it, but when it comes down to it, like a lot of the time I'm like, but I'm so cozy and I'm wrapped up in a blankie or whatever, and I'm just like, so I don't get out.
Dog
much.
on my lap.
Yeah. I'll use that excuse just to not go and get a cup of tea. But yeah, so I grew up as kind of the black sheep in the family. I had no intentions for like higher education. I had weird friends, which we'll get into in one of the future parts here. And I was I was an odd kid. And if it wasn't for the fact that my mom, and we talked about this in the section I talked about my mom, if it wasn't for the fact that she had instilled the idea of equality for old people and all that kind of stuff into me as a younger adult, then I'd probably be like grade A level asshole at this point. But
you're grade C right now.
Huh?
You're grade C.
I'm a grade C level asshole. But, not having brothers and sisters, like video games were my escape. That's why I enjoyed them so much. Friends were a really big part of my upbringing, and my friends became my brothers and my family, which was something I'll get into in a little bit. But yeah, the family upbringing part of it, like the fact I was an only child, the fact that I was kind of the black sheep, the fact that my mom was just as cool as she was, like that shaped a lot of who I became to be as a younger person. I used to have straight A grades when I was in school. Like I was killing it. I won awards for like English and stuff like that.
Not math.
Not maths. But yeah,
that's why. It's because you had to do multiple of them.
I can't even do one math. But the second thing that took the biggest strike out of my personality, I would say, was music. And when I say music, I say it lovingly. Sorry, I'm going to tweak this mic this way because I feel like this is a lean-in moment here. So Korn was the first band that I listened to that really and I say this, it sounds so cheesy and corny and stuff, but they genuinely did change my life a little bit. And it was because at that point, I'd listened to all the hair metal stuff like Aerosmith and Guns N' Roses, and that was all great and everything. But largely I was still listening to like pop music or whatever was on the radio or whatever. And then the first time I came across Korn was their video for Blind. It was on like MTV or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know. I know Freak on a Leash is all I know.
The first song on the first album.
I know them, but I don't know. One song by them.
But Blind was an incredible song, an incredible album starter, and also the video was really good too. So I'd never in a million years heard anything like it, and honestly, most of the industry hadn't at that point, which is why it, basically birthed new metal. But listening to that and hearing someone like let out their anger in a way that Jonathan Davis did, and just kind of the fact that I find myself wanting to move my body in peculiar ways listening to this music. You know what I mean? Like I was like, I never was one for like headbanging or whatever, but then like, I would get really like, I'd stomp around my room and like sing along and, just really get into it. And it totally changed my outlook on life, because I got to this point where I was kind of like, initially I thought the world was fucking roses and I'd just grow up and everything would be great. And then after sort of digging into these slightly more depressive bands, and it wasn't their fault, I mean, they had tough upbringings and they had rough music, but I kind of grew to realize that not everything in the world was roses, and that there were a lot of shitty things, and that I started to get into a slight depressive phase, which never really left me. I did play guitar in a band, played on stage, broke my guitar, set fire to it, and then went to my tent.
By the way, it's really weird how you have this love affection for Korn, and the way I view Korn is way different than the way you do. Because
Korn were like it for me. They were like my fucking heroes.
Because I view them from a professional standpoint. For those of you who don't know, and I think I've said it before publicly on the show, Korn. I know. I'm friends with Head, but I know all the members of Korn, and I've talked to them and interviewed them and hung out with them and all that kind of stuff.
And I told you that I had my hair done like Head.
Yeah, and I said I would. Yeah, I've said this on the show because I said I'd hit them up and say, hey. So we're gonna make that happen at some point.
Yeah, they were huge in my upbringing as far as like shaping me. And this was like 14, 15 years old. So this is when I started learning. I started dressing differently. I did the whole new metal thing, and
that's Hawthorne Heights for me.
Yeah,
y'all gonna make fun of me for it, but Hawthorne Heights and Silverstein Was that gateway drug into everything else.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of people that get that certain band or that certain
I mean, My Chemical Romance too. Don't get me wrong.
Hits them and changes their personality a little bit, but it was a genuine moment of awakening for me, and it was like rebel music to me, and it was just something about the anger sank with me really well, and so I started learning how to play guitar, and then I also did the rapping thing, and music was always just a huge important part of my life, and I've been through so many different eras of it now and so many different genres that I still enjoy to this day. I like to think that I have a really eclectic taste in music, but there's not one person that I would have a difficult time holding a conversation with if it was music based, except for maybe like new country music fans. Like those guys I might have trouble, but pretty much anyone else, like I can talk about like old school anything compared to what's going on nowadays, and I've kept up with a lot of it. But music was huge as far as shaping me. That was the second thing that really changed me from just being kind of like outcast by myself playing video games into outcast by myself playing video games
but angry
in black clothing. So then
as my mom used to say when I started listening to the music, she goes, "Oh, I hate life." Ah! I was like, "I love you, Sandy." So, looking back, it was funny.
Yeah.
At the time I was like, "Shut up, Mom. You don't get me.
You just don't get it.
You don't get it.
Parents just don't understand."
God.
Thirdly, my friend groups. So I went through so many friend groups over my time growing up.
You're a floater, is what you're saying.
I was a floater, and so, but they were always hardcore when I was in it, you know? So, like, my initial group of friends growing up was just obviously the neighborhood kids. And then when I went out and sort of expanded into the neighborhood more and into school and things like that, I got different friend groups. My friend group at school was the guys that could go anywhere. So they were like, we had like one really popular athlete, one just, you know, really nice medium dude, and then just like a lot of like, it was kind of like there was a couple people that people really respected in the group, other people that just no one really minded, a couple people on the scrubbier end, but together, because we all hung out together, we had this kind of like, just I would say just pure like middle ground. Like there was no one that was like super popular that wasn't a little bit awkward. There was no one that wasn't a little bit awkward that wasn't kind of cool in some way. Like everyone had a thing. And so my school group of friends was very
I got with the athletes.
Yes, yeah, I didn't. Yeah.
I got with all the athletes.
But
sports.
But then, you know, I started to, my friend group started to get interesting. So I had a friend from school who's still one of my best friends to this day. He currently owns a publishing company, which is so weird to me. So he'll like go out, look for a trend in what people are looking for in books, pay someone to write the book, publish the book, put it on Amazon and make money off it, which is fucking genius. But he's actually got a website called Financially Free by 40. And his plan is to be rich as fuck by 40, and that's what his game is. His like life goal is, and he's doing really well. And he's also one of the most positive people I know.
Is he 40 yet?
No, he's the same age as me.
Cool.
So he's got a couple years. So he's working on that. But then through the game of basketball, I met a couple other of my friends that basically they were playing at this hoop, and me and my other friend went down to play. If you notice, I'm trying to leave names out. And then we had like a 2-on-2 game, and we become really good friends. And then, you know, just typical childhood, like Stand By Me, like group of friends come together, misfits or whatever.
The concept of friends is a weird thing, by the way.
It really
it's
is.
Like, hey, stranger.
I like you more than other people, so I'm going to spend more time with you.
Yeah.
But then the weirdest part happened, because I went through, like, I was still really good friends with these guys, and I would still go and see them every night. But then when I went to college, you know, I had a different group of friends, and I would hang out with them more. I got a girlfriend and her friends. We would hang out and that kind of stuff. So this group was more like scene-y, you know, like they had like there was a guy called this guy, will name him because no one will fucking know, Dreadman Dan was his name, and he was just this dude called Dan that had giant purple dreadlocks, and you know, this just a bizarre group of characters, but I got on with them really well. It wasn't until way later that I met, well, not met, but got closer to my friend's younger brother and his friends, which is a weird thing to be at, because I was always the guy that was hanging out with like a year or two younger kids. Like I had like my main friend was like my age. Our other friend was older, but the older friend, his younger brother, got to this point where he just like suddenly one day became not an asshole because he'd been an asshole for like years and years and years, always trying to force himself in while we're playing video games or movies.
I mean, that's how you didn't grow up with little brothers. So that's how it works. I had the same thing for my sister. My brother did it to me. And like I've said it before that like I used to. Me and my brother never really got along, partially because of the age gap, but now it's like, now that we're older, the age gap, even with the same amount of years, is closing, and like, oh, we can have a legit conversation now.
It is weird, because the first time you do it, you're just kind of like, wow, like, I didn't think you'd actually be kind of cool. And then you'd start to hang out with him, or he would hang out with his older brother, because they started getting on, and then like all of his friends would hang around. So we had this pretty large group of like 6 to 10 people that were all, you know, fucking mental. And one of my friends from that group is now an author. I recently bought his newest book, and also he sent me a podcast that he's working on, and he has these amazing poems and everything. So I can't speak to everyone else in the group and what they're doing, but it was like probably the closest tight-knit group of people they ever had, which leads me to number 4, which is drugs. So yes, drugs shaped me quite considerably, not just stuff that I did, but what my friends did too, because I was always on the lighter side of things. I only ever smoked weed. That was all that I did. I think one time I tried magic mushrooms, and I ate the stalk, so it wasn't like the top head part, so you just felt like really stoned. There was I didn't hallucinate anything, so clearly I was doing it wrong. And yeah, but mostly it was just weed. But we would do like so much of that it almost didn't seem like we needed anything else. Like we would buy like a bucket load of that stuff. We would sometimes just sit there, have sleepovers, and roll up as many joints as we could. We'd have like fucking 30 to 50 joints rolled up, and we would just smoke them throughout the night. We wouldn't leave the room. We'd box the room in, close the doors, just smoke everywhere. Like it was bad. Like it was to the point where I would spend probably 20-25 pounds a day on weed. And yeah, and you know, you end up doing some weird shit when you hang around with drug dealers and stuff. Weirdest memory, or a couple weird memories that I have, are going to my friend's house after work. It'd been a shitty shift at work, and on the way home I was like, okay, I don't have any weed, I really need some weed, I'm fucking, you know. So I called this guy because I know he's going to be up. He was this Cockney guy who just moved from London, and I was like, hey, can I come over and get some? And he's like, sure. And then when I go over there, he's like, hey, do you mind stirring that pot up there? And I was like, I thought it was like fucking dinner or whatever, so I'm sat there like stirring like pasta, and he's weighing up everything, and I'm just sat there stirring this pot. I was like, what is this shit anyway? And he goes, oh, it's crack. I was like, oh, this is great. I'm a crack cook now. Like just stirring this fucking pot, and I'm just like, Jesus Christ, like where's my life at right now? And but I never did the hard stuff. My friends, however, did. Not all of them, some of them. They got into coke and ketamine and Molly and MDMA and blah, 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 all that stuff. And they would just like get up on a Saturday, drop some MDMA and go shopping. And I'd just be like, I couldn't do that.
That was like my roommate in college used to snort a lot of coke pretty much every day and just would do life. And I was like,
I hated people on coke. And
well, I wouldn't see him. He'd go out and come back and like he would sleep all day.
But when they're like, if you're around them when they're doing it, cokeheads are annoying because they're chattering their teeth and everything is amazing to them because they think.
Well, that's my life in general. So.
But the ecstasy was the worst with the MDMA because that made you love everybody. So you'd have like people that you were friends with or whatever that would come up to you on the street and just be like, oh, I love you so much, and start giving you hugs and everything. And our town was so shitty for drugs. There was nothing to do. There was a ton of kids. The old people, the council that ran that town, like they didn't let us have an internet cafe that was offered to us. They didn't let us have a cinema. In fact, they broke the cinema down and made it a bingo hole for old people. Like there was fuck all to do. So you would naturally gravitate to drugs, and you would just kind of do that on a day in, day out basis, and that was your life. I've showed you some very dodgy pictures of me.
My favorite's the one of you in front of the camper.
Yeah, in that
favorite
era
one.
when I was just a shady little shit that would just always trying to find my next bag of weed, and we would just go smoke it and then do nothing, or just like listen to music or whatever. And of course, I was doing that with my friends that I was also making music with, so there was always kind of an excuse of, oh, let's get fucked up, and then we write way better than we do when we're not.
Which is not true if you ask Anthony Kiedis.
It's
he's like being sober. He's like, I realize how much better of a musician I actually am.
He was doing heroin though, so I think there's definitely a slight distinct difference. I think weed does help with creativity. Heroin, not so much. But yeah, it was a huge part of it because it became a problem in my home life. Like, obviously, I was always broke all the time. I never, to my knowledge, like, went and stole things or whatever to pay for the habit. It was just like if I ran out, I would become a monster. Like, I would, like, 3 days of being sober for me, you better fucking watch out if you were close to me, because I would break you. And it was weird because I was so stoned all the time that when I wasn't stoned, I felt stoned. Because that was the
weird
not
feeling,
normal.
yeah.
That was the not normal for me. Was like not being stoned. So yeah, it was definitely a problem. It led to a lot of weird shit in my life. But of course, I gave it up to come over to America, mostly because there was no drug dealers that I knew here, but also because
I was gonna say there are drug dealers over here.
But also, for Jess, because I was sort of starting this this new kind of life over here, and I wanted to try and do a clean slate on it. So the last part is moving to America. So I was 25 when I finally moved to America, and that's 10 years ago.
You graduated the same year, or you moved the same year I graduated, or got married the same year I graduated. One of the two. 2009.
Yeah. So I actually first visited America on April 16th, 2007. So I've already passed my 10-year anniversary of the visit, but not from when I moved. So as far as like how that whole thing looked, basically, obviously, me and Jess, you had a whole podcast about how that happened. But when I came over, it was super weird because I had to basically like lie about being here and why I was here, because I was like, I was gonna go visit my American friend. I got some money. We're just hanging out. I got a tourist visa. I'm gonna be here for 6 months. Everything will be great. Yeah. And then I tell my boss, like, I say, I need you to write me a note that says you'll rehire me after 6 months of being in America. You're never gonna have to use it, but can you write it? And he was actually a drug dealer, and he was like, sure, no problem. So he wrote it out. And so then I go to the like, I don't even know what the fucking name of it, like visa registration place or whatever in London, which was the most fucking depressing place on earth. Just imagine like 400 chairs full of people from all over the world sat there waiting to get told whether they get to go to a different country or stay in the country they're in or not. And it was a ticket system, so you're just sat there. I was there for 3 hours. It was worse than the DMV, dude. But I was there for like 3 hours holding onto this ticket, waiting to get called. I go up and they just ask me a couple questions like, why are you going? Why a tourist visa? Do you have enough money to sustain yourself? Can you prove it? Where are you living? That kind of stuff. So I'm just like, yeah, I got this much money, but I'm going to be staying at this girl's house that I know over there. Here's her address, and all that kind of. Here's a letter from my boss saying he'll rehire me when I come home. And then when we got here, I had no real intention of going home. So we got an immigration lawyer, and I was like, what do I have to do to not go home? And about $4,000 in lawyer fees later, we get married basically, and started keeping all of our receipts and signing up for like multiple subscriptions together and that kind of shit. And because
you have to prove that you are indeed together,
that you didn't just come in and fuck off somewhere. Yeah.
I have I won't say who it is in my family, but I had somebody in my family married somebody from another country, and just so she could get citizenship.
Yeah, and it used to be way easier to do that, but they don't really do it.
Post 9/11, it's probably real hard.
Oh, it's a lot harder. Because we tried to originally get Jess over to England, but that was even harder at the time. So this was hard, but it was still less hard. Nowadays, I mean, fucking, I can't even imagine how hard it is for people to try and get over here. But yeah, so moving over here and getting married and staying, and we're still married. We're still having, we still have a good relationship, and we have puppies and all kinds of stuff. The weird things that sort of changed me while I was here. Religion and activism, religion and politics. I never used to give a shit about it in England, honestly. Like, I just always assumed, I was always an atheist, so I always assumed that God wasn't real, and I always assumed that politics were inherently corrupt and evil. And obviously, now I know the second one is definitely true after being in this country for a matter of time. But I was never interested in English politics because it was boring, frankly. There wasn't much going on. American politics, I really took a shine to because it's like a soap opera because it's so crazy. Like I learned all the senators' names and all the things. Like I started following the news way more frequently. The religious stuff didn't bother me until I started seeing road signs, like I told you, that were just like, do you know how many aborted fetuses there are a year? And I'm like, no, dude, and I don't want to know. I'm trying to go to McDonald's. Or whatever it was. Like, so that stuff bothered me, and that definitely tweaked me a little bit into things like activism, which I do a little bit of nowadays, but only when I have the opportunity to do it. And ultimately ended up with me being sat in a chair with you making this show. So, so those are the 5 things that shaped me as a human being quite significantly. My family, music, my friends, drugs, and moving countries. All had a profound say in the person that's in front of you right now. So if anyone does have any questions or cares to ask any questions about any of that, and yourself included, you're welcome to. But I just kind of wanted to throw that out there as like, that's kind of what shaped me. And I've never regretted any of it. Like I'm
always a firm believer. So one of the things we talk about a lot is we are two vastly different people when it comes to we're similar in a lot of ways, but we are very different in other ways. But we respect each other. And one of the things I want to iterate to anybody who's watching and or listening is respect goes a long way in a lot of things, period. It doesn't matter where you are in the argument, where you are on the stance of something, respect, a lot of it boils down to that. Yes. So, I mean, it's weird because if you told me probably even like before I moved to St. Louis, so what was that like oh God, that was like 7 or 8 years ago now. Jesus.
Probably around the same time I did.
We probably wouldn't have been friends because I obviously went from 18 to 25 and you changed quite a bit during that time as well too, and you figure out who you are in the adult life, and obviously my upbringing was different than most, and I kind of had a harsh dose of reality when my parents were no longer in charge of me. And be like, oh shit, I gotta actually do this. So it's just like, it's just really interesting to see how we came together. I mean, we came together from where we work, but like...
Well, I think a lot of it was just and it's weird how it's translated, but like the reason why we got on so well in the store was because I always thought you were a down-to-earth guy, kind of funny, and I liked you for that reason. But like,
you were like the only one then.
Whenever we would both use the walkies.
Oh yeah, we got yelled at a couple times.
And so we have walkie-talkies at our work, and I'm addicted to saying stupid shit when people say stupid shit on the walkies. So I'll come out with something, and then he would chime in from the back because he works in a different area.
Worked in inventory.
And then we would just go back and forth to the point where we were like borderline going to get fired.
And then the manager would step in and be like, you guys need to stop.
Yeah, manager would be like, you guys need to shut the fuck up right now. But we did that enough times that we just kind of knew that we had a good chemistry as far as the conversation goes. And that's just carried over to this show. So
that's one thing we've always been told is we have good chemistry, and you can't really fake that. That's the weird part. So
even though we are very different people, and I think you would have liked me, I just think you would have judged me,
probably,
which is fine because you know
I still judge you on certain things.
That's fine.
I mean, let's be honest.
I mean, people judge,
but you understand. I think it's interesting. Before we get on the next thing is when it comes to me judging you, I think you understand kind of why I do it, and not that I'm defending it, but like you said, when you get to know somebody and their background, you understand a lot more about that person and what they believe and why they are the way they are. Yeah. And it's like, oh, okay. I don't agree with you necessarily, but I can see why that is a thing.
Well, that's it. That's just it, isn't it? That's why I wanted to bring that up, because I felt like there's a lot of times when you look at someone's opinion or their like a Facebook post they make or whatever it might be.
I've blocked more people on Facebook in the last 6 to 8 months than I have ever.
And you kind of you assume you know someone just from having a few conversations with them, but unless you know where they came from and what molded them to be who they are, then you don't really know the whole person. So it's kind of like I don't want to be. It's like that fucking. You think you know, but you have no idea. Britney Spears shit, but it's at the same time, like, it is really that. It's really like whenever you meet anyone, you don't know the various different things that molded that person to be where they are. So I think talking about the molding of a human being is kind of interesting. I could go way deeper on that topic a lot, but I'm trying to be good and time bound. So
next topic.
Next topic is my tails. My tales is basically I wanted to have a chit chat with you about it because it's nice and fun. So the next topic is going to be about launch title games for consoles over the years. I thought it'd be really fun because I stumbled across, because I've always wanted to do a video about like launch titles, because launch titles to me are fascinating. Like thinking back to like when a game first came out and like, you know, whether it helped the system
the interesting thing too is a lot of people think launch titles and good games early on in the generation confused.
Yeah,
because a lot of the times the games that launch with the system
terrible
or not that good, but the games that came out within the first few months, they're like, because there's always usually that one game.
We're talking day one.
Yeah, there's usually that one game that sustains people, whether and 9 times out of 10, unless you're N64, and I'm sure we'll get to a few of them.
Oh yeah, so I'm not gonna do every single one ever.
We're not gonna do the television or the Atari VCS.
Yeah, this one has like ColecoVision and all kinds of shit in it. But what I wanted to talk about was some of the obviously like bigger ones. So let's start with the NES, right?
Let me zoom in so I can read this.
Go ahead.
I'm blind.
So the NES came out in October 1985.
Game Informer gave it an A.
Give it yeah for the launch titles that came with it. Yeah, came out in 1985 in NY and then 1986 nationwide. So here's the little write-up they have. Like other systems of the time, the NES debuted in a major test market before it was released nationwide at a later date. The actual day one lineup of the fabled NES, which was out first in Japan as the Famicom, is hard to pinpoint because we're not 100% certain whether the legendary Super Mario Bros. Was at the New York launch of the system. Regardless, Super Mario Bros. Was also later offered as a pack-in title for the console. So here were your titles that were available on launch day for the NES. 10-Yard Fight. Baseball.
Back when you could do that.
Clue Clue Land.
That reminds of Ku Klux Klan.
A little bit.
It's a little
Donkey Kong Jr. Math.
Available on NES National, launched in 1986.
Duck Hunt, which was a pack-in. That's
the Duck Hunt Mario.
Pack-in means that it came like with the system.
Yeah, Duck Hunt Mario were the pack-in game.
Excite Bike. Golf. Gyromite, which was a pack.
Was that was the Rob the Robot one? I'm guessing.
Hogan's Alley, Ice Climber, Kung Fu, Mac Rider, Pinball, Soccer, Stack Up, Super Mario Brothers, which later was packaged with the system, Tennis.
I love that you can just do golf, tennis, and soccer.
Right? So fucking early they didn't even need to tag it with anything other than the name.
No licenses.
Wild Gunman and Wrecking Crew. So let's talk about that lineup.
I've only owned 2 of those.
Okay.
I bet you can guess which 2.
Duck Hunt and Super Mario.
There you go. No, 3 of them, I guess, because I had Excite Bike as well. I'm guessing Gyromite is the one with Robot Rob. If you got the Robot Rob edition,
I've got no idea. Didn't Robot Rob come out after?
No, he was initial launch, and then they switched it for Mario because they tried to. So the reason the NES is the way it is, like the way it looks and the way it functions, is the industry collapsed, and Nintendo wanted to sell it as an entertainment system, not a gaming system. So it's meant to look like a toaster. That was intentional. And Robot Rob made it sound like it was more of a toy than it was a gaming system. So if you had this thing next to them, they could sell because, like, hey, it's a toy. It's not, because at that point in people's mind, video games were.
And if you guys are unfamiliar with Robbie the Robot, then basically he was a little.
He's really slow.
Little dude that would like move like
he
this.
He could grab. So he had a game. It has to be Gyromite. He had a game where you could grab these discs, pick them up, like you could program them with player 2.
Yeah.
And he'd move these discs and put them on different platforms, and that would open up. There was a game where it'd open up just doors for you. I think he only worked on 3 games.
It was like some next level shit at the time. But yeah, so I mean, obviously the biggest, baddest one of the bunch there was Super Mario Brothers. Duck Hunt, super popular because it was a pack-in, had the light gun, really decent, fun little game.
Those are the only games I remember playing outside of Excite Bike, and I had Track and Field with the running mat.
Excite Bike and Ice Climber are 2 of the more popular ones in there. Those guys have actually showed up in like Smash Brothers and stuff, and they use Excite Bike tracks for Mario Kart and things like that. But the
Excite Bike had an N64 version, which I absolutely loved.
Right.
I didn't think I would.
I just love the fact, like you said, that they can just have like baseball, golf, pinball, soccer, tennis,
Kung Fu.
And just have that as being the main thing for it. So that was the original NES lineup, which I thought was worth mentioning. So let's talk Master System, right? Because this is a small one to talk about. Their launch was C-. That was Sega's attempt to take on NES back in the day. We discussed it briefly in the console war section last week.
I've never seen a Master System in real life.
There you go. Well, this isn't real life. It's
I know.
It's
I've
on the
seen
computer,
it, but I've never seen. I've just realized
I'm totally gonna get one. Yeah. Although the Master System later found success with Alex Kidd and Miracle World, Phantasy Star, and more, its launch was unassuming. This was no doubt due in part to Nintendo's exclusivity deal with many third-party publishers.
See, exclusives have been the thing since day one.
So, title available on launch day for the Sega Master System.
Hang on.
And Safari Hunt, which were pack-in games, and then Snail Maze, which was a hidden title built into the system, which is kind of neat. Hang On was alright. I played Hang On.
I can't speak because I've never played Master System.
It's a motorbike game.
Yeah.
Yeah. You see it in arcades sometimes, occasionally. It was a shitty motorbike game, but it was a motorbike game. But yeah, Alex Kidd not being a launch title hurt that because that would have been a lot better. Alex Kidd was essentially Sega's answer to Mario at that point in time. Phantasy Star was huge, you know, as JRPG.
Yeah, Phantasy Star of that. Alex Kidd and Phantasy Star, I know those two names, and that's probably it from the Sega world outside of Sonic.
So not a huge launch title thing, but this came out again. Remember, this guy came out in June 1986, which was really close to the original NES. Let's talk Game Boy. So the Game Boy, it says it's easy now to scoff at the black and white screen, but the presence of one of the greatest games of all time, Tetris, as a pack-in title, no doubt was one of the keys to this system's phenomenal success.
Did you know that they can't track how many sales there have been of Tetris?
No.
And another fun fact about Tetris: the guy who made Tetris gets paid nothing because he was in the USSR at the time.
Yeah, the original version has the best music because of that. Like, and they have like I don't know what you call them, like the red square like buildings in the background and stuff. But yeah, the titles available on launch day for the Nintendo Game Boy, which was in August 1989, were Alleyway, Baseball, Super Mario Land, Tennis, and Tetris. Biggest two there, Tetris and Mario, obviously. Everyone wanted to play Mario.
I played Tetris. I've never
portable
played
manner. And Tetris was just hugely.
I mean, let's be honest. I didn't get in the game because this is 2 years before I was born. I didn't get until I was Pokemon. What got Tetris? We had Tetris. We had a Jurassic Park game and Pokemon.
I don't think I ever owned a Game Boy. I definitely borrowed a Game Boy because I remember having it.
Ours got to the point where we had to tape the battery thing shut because we'd broken the latch on it.
Yeah.
So you literally just tape the batteries in and hope to God it would work.
They were clunky, but they were cool. I like the magnifying glass that were released. That was cool.
The light, you had the light attachment.
Yeah, like you're reading a book or something. So let's get a little bit newer. So Sega Genesis, released on August 1989, got a launch grade of B from Game Informer here. And this is the Genesis' superior graphics to the NES allowed it to gain ground with its sports games and arcade ports, even if the only sport available at launch was baseball.
Did they call it baseball?
Let's find out. So titles available on launch day were Altered Beast pack-in game, Last Battle, Space Harrier 2, Super Thunder Blade, Thunder Force 2, and Tommy Lasorda Baseball.
Nope.
So that one had an actual name for it.
Do you know who Tommy Lasorda is?
I don't.
He's a former catcher, I think, for the Dodgers.
Okay.
He played for the Dodgers. I don't know any of these games. I've never heard of any of these games.
Altered Beast was a huge arcade game that they ported, but it was a weird game. Everyone liked it, but everyone thought it was rock hard. Like, I don't know anyone that managed to get past the second level. Like, it was just you could choose from a monster. You would go. It was a side-scrolling platformer. It definitely does not really stand up to the test of time, but they did recently release it as a freebie for iOS. So if you want to play it, it is available for free to try. Space Harrier was huge. Space Harrier 2, I don't know if that was much better, but Space Harrier is the one where you had like a dude in a jetpack and you would be shooting forward and flying around the screen.
You know what I'm noticing with these launch titles?
What's that?
Beast, Battle, Space, Thunder, and
yeah, there wasn't a whole lot of originality back in the day. But yeah, Space Harrier, I would say, was a big one for that. And Altered Beast was pretty huge too. So let's talk Game Gear, because this was the only real kind of competition that the Game Boy had for a while, and I've wanted a Game Gear forever. I found one in a fucking antique shop the other day, but it was broken, and I was so mad because I wanted to buy it.
I know nothing
so
about
much.
the Game Gear.
So the Game Gear was Sega's version of a Game Boy. Came out in April 1991. Launch grade gets a C. So titles that are available on launch day. Now remember, this is a color console too, so this was pretty handy dandy. The batteries were for shit, but
well, it's because it's color.
Castle of Illusion, starring Mickey Mouse. Columns, which is a pack-in game. G-Loke, Air Battle. Psychic World, Revenge of Drancon, and Super Monaco GP. Castle of Illusion was a huge game because that was also on the Genesis, and it was just a great game. This was back when Disney was making just bangers. You know, they were doing Aladdin and all that kind of shit. Castle of Illusion, you could
back when they worked with Virgin or whatever it was.
I can't remember if it was World of Illusion or Castle that was Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck. One of them, I think, was just one character. The other was 2-player. Columns was Sega's answer to Tetris. It was a Stack 3 game, and one of my favorite games ever. I think I've told this story before, but I remember getting to like level 113 or something and being so fucking pumped on it that I paused the game and called my mom while she was at work, and I was like, Mom, I'm at level 113.
And she was like,
I was like, I'm gonna leave it paused so I can show you when you get home. So I just stopped the console, I paused it, and I just like waited for my mom to get home before I showed her where I was, and then I died promptly after. And Super Monaco was pretty big too. So let's get into the SNES, which was their answer, of course, for the Genesis. September 1991, launch grade A-. That's a good one. Despite the presence of only 3 titles on launch day, the NES follow-up didn't disappoint fans by packing in the legendary Super Mario World, which we gave a perfect 10 in a classic Game Informer review in 2000. So the 3 titles were Super Mario World, F-Zero, and Pilot Wings.
I mean, if you're only going to have 3, those are 3 big headers.
They're pretty good ones. Yeah, like you said. Those are 3 pretty solid.
It's really interesting that pack-in games are not a thing anymore.
Yeah.
You get the bundles.
The last one was the Wii.
Yeah, with Wii Sports. But like,
and I think that 1-2 Switch should have been a pack-in game. But I don't know if I'm ever going to buy that now because of that. But if it was a pack-in, I would play it. So then let's see what Sega had as an answer to that, and that was, of course, the Sega Saturn, which I did own one, had a C+. And I remember this launch. This is the first launch title lineup that I can look back and go, I remember all of those.
You're still you're still pre-me.
Am I?
I'm definitely Sega. I realized later on how many consoles Sega had, because to me Sega's the Genesis. That's Sega in my brain. Yeah.
I realized when we talked about console wars that I actually ignored the Saturn. I said that Sega went straight to the Dreamcast, and that was incorrect. I think what I was trying to say was that Sonic's jump to 3D was the Dreamcast. Anyway, the games available on the Saturn's launch were overshadowed by the debut of the system itself. Sega was planning a September release of the Saturn, dubbed Saturn Day, to go up against Sony's soon-to-launch PlayStation system, but decided to get a leg up by releasing the Saturn directly after Sega's E3 presentation in May. This surprised retailers and third-party publishers, which were prepared for a fall launch. This left the system with only 6 titles, all Sega made, on day 1, and this was May 1995. So the titles that were available for the Saturn on launch day were Clockwork Knight, Daytona USA, Panzer Dragoon, Pebble Beach, Golf Links, Virtua Fighter was a pack-in game, and Worldwide Soccer. Clockwork Knight was fucking brilliant. I'll say that.
Daytona USA is the only one I've played on here.
It was a solid game. Daytona was great. Panzer Dragoon was amazing. Virtua Fighter was
I wonder how different the Sega Saturn would have been if they did launch in the fall versus when they did.
I don't know. It's a great question.
Because third parties, if they had, who knows? It could have been shit.
Better off the jump. Yeah,
still could have been shit. Because let's be honest, PS2 kind of just.
Well, the PS just crushed the Saturn.
Yeah. The PS2 destroyed. Or PlayStation. Original PlayStation
was out for the
PlayStation
Saturn.
Just swept up everything.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. Even with the even the PS3 hasn't sold poorly. Obviously, compared to Microsoft at the beginning of the cycle, Microsoft was dominating sales, but by the end, it ended up leveling out.
PlayStation's always been pretty fucking solid as far as hardware.
They screw some things up here and there, but
yeah. But
when it comes to console hardware, let's start with that, because their portables have been questionable at best sometimes.
I'll give you that. Sony PlayStation released on September in 1995, and their launch grade actually is only rated as a C. The launch of the PlayStation didn't betray its later success, although Game Informer gave good marks to Ridge Racer, which had a 9, and Battle Arena to Shiden, which had an 8.5. Unlike some systems, PlayStation's Day 1 software was soon followed up by quality titles. The month of November 1995 saw the release of games such as Twisted Metal, Tekken, and Destruction Derby, which are a lot more.
So this is one of those things that the launch lineup wasn't good, but given them
a couple months after, there was some good stuff. So the launch titles for the PlayStation on day 1 were Battle Arena Toshiden, ESPN Extreme Games, Kiliak, the DNA Imperative, NBA Jam Tournament Edition, Raiden Project, Rayman, Ridge Racer, and Street Fighter.
Ridge Racer.
The movie.
I only know 2 of those games.
Street
Three
Fighter
of those
the
games
movie,
technically.
Fuck me, that was a terrible game.
Ridge Racer,
Did you ever play that?
Rayman, and NBA Jam. Is the one. No, I never played. Remember, I didn't play PlayStation.
Street Fighter the movie was on a couple things, but it was like, so you had Street Fighter the game, which they then made a shitty movie out of, which they then made a shitty game based on the shitty
You have to
movie.
remember, in 1995, I was 4 years old,
That's fair.
so I was not allowed to play these violent games, Tom.
So let's get into your
This
era.
one-
Nintendo 64.
This one I remember because we got this at launch.
September 1996, launch
Well,
grade A-.
I think we got it for Christmas of launch, so I didn't get it at launch.
Similar to the SNES before it, it was quality, not quantity, for the launch of the N64. Super Mario 64 introduced a 3D platformer, although it's hard to defend Pilot Wing 64 now when you look back at it. Titles available on launch day were simply 2, Pilot Wing 64 and Mario 64. Let's be honest, they didn't need more than Mario.
I played a lot of Pilot Wings though growing up. Like I loved Pilot Wings.
I love
but
Pilot
yeah.
Wings. I'm just saying that like Super Mario 64 was like, you could have released that and not released anything else for 2 months and been fun.
It's kind of like Zelda on the Switch.
For sure. Not worried about Game Boy Color. Let's talk about Dreamcast. So, Dreamcast, September 1999, launch grade B+. Gamers were excited for the technology advanced Dreamcast with its VMU screen and built-in modem, but these day one titles didn't offer much outside of some alluring graphics. This was Sega's console swan song, but at least the Dreamcast launch gave us Soul Calibur. So here are the titles available for the Dreamcast, of which
Quite a
there
few.
are many.
Yeah.
Arrow Wings, Air Force Delta, Blue Stringer, Expendable, Flag to Flag, House of the Dead 2, Hydro Thunder, Monaco Grand Prix 2, Mortal Kombat Gold, NFL 2K, NFL Blitz 2000, Pen Triathlon, Power Stone, Ready to Rumble Boxing, Sonic Adventure, Soul Calibur, Tokyo Extreme Racer, Trick Style, TNN Motorsports, and Hardcore Heat. Of which I only know...
It's TNN Motorsports Hardcore Heat.
Oh, sorry.
It's one title.
Of which I only know House of the Dead, Mortal Kombat, Ready to Rumble, Sonic Adventure, and Soul Calibur.
So my cousin had this. So I played Hydro Thunder, the NFL 2K, and NFL Blitz. I remember NFL Blitz being my jam, and then Sonic Adventure.
Sonic Adventure did not make the elegant leap that Mario did, which is largely why
It wasn't
the Dreamcast
bad on the
failed.
Dreamcast though, but it wasn't great.
It wasn't Mario 64.
No, if Mario 64 hadn't come out and did what it did, I think this would have been fine
Yeah.
with it. But yeah.
So, moving on, PlayStation 2, October 2000, launch grade C. Despite boasting the largest number of launch titles here, 29 games, no doubt because of the brand equity of the PlayStation moniker, the PS2's launch was largely forgettable. The biggest reason was a noticeable lack of Sony-developed first-party software. So let's get into this shit.
I never understood why you would launch a system without first-party games.
I don't know. Turned out to be a pretty good console, but let's go. Ready? Armored Core 2, Dead or Alive 2, Hardcore, Dynasty Warriors 2, ESPN International Track and Field, ESPN Winter X Games, Snowboarding, Eternal Ring, Evergrace, Fantavision, Gun Griffin, Blaze, Kessen, Madden NFL 2001. Kessen, I feel like I played.
Dude, Midnight Club. I remember playing that on the Xbox.
Midnight Club Street Racing, MotoGP, NHL 2001, Orphans, Scion of Sorcery, Cube Bowl Billiards, Master, Ready to Rumble Boxing, Round 2, Ridge Racer 5, Silent Scope, Smuggler's Run, SSX, Street Fighter X3, Summoner, Swing Away Golf, Tekken Tag Tournament, Time Splitters, Unreal Tournament, Wild Wild Racing, and X Squad, which was the winner of our shitty game competition. That's good to
Didn't
know
know
that
it
was a
was
launch
launch.
title for PlayStation
Midnight
2.
Club, SSX, and Madden are the only 3 that I've played. But I played them on different platforms, not the PlayStation.
I played, let's see, Kessen rings a huge bell, but I can't remember why. Midnight Club I played. Ready to Rumble I played.
I mean, I know of a lot of them.
Ridge
but
Racer,
never played them.
SSX, Street Fighter, Tekken Tag, and Time Splitters was probably
Time Splitters,
the biggest one
I played the arcade version of that, but I've never
yeah,
played
Time
the
Splitters
console.
was huge for the release. Okay.
Here we go, my baby. This is the first one I remember. And you know what's real sad, Tom?
What's
It's
that?
about 10 years after the one you remember.
Yep. Welcome to my life. So Microsoft Xbox, the original, November 2001, launch grade B. In its console debut, Microsoft put some noticeable first-party effort behind the launch. Although almost all of those franchises are now gone, without Halo Combat Evolved, Microsoft might be out of video games by now, which is a comment you've made before. So titles available on launch day are 4x4 Evo 2, Air Force Delta Storm, Arctic Thunder, Cell Damage, Dead or Alive 3, Fusion Frenzy, Halo Combat Evolved, Mad Dash Racing, NFL Fever 2002, Oddworld, Munch's Odyssey, Project Gotham Racing, and Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2.
So of these games, I owned Halo. Obviously, everybody owned Halo. Fusion Frenzy I did not own, but I played the demo on Halo consistently. Like, I should have just bought the game because I played it enough. NFL Fever, Oddworld I played, and Project Gotham Racing, and Tony Hawk. So basically, the first, 3 I didn't. Cell Damage is a real good game, by the way, though.
I did Halo, Oddworld, and Tony. I am familiar with Project Gotham, but more from the arcade.
Yeah, Project Gotham was good.
Nintendo GameCube, November 2001, launch grade B-. Unlike previous Nintendo home systems, the company decided to pad out the GameCube launch with some third-party titles. While this approach was admirable, the exclusive titles like Luigi's Mansion and Rogue Leader remained the only standout games. Titles available on launch day: All-Star Baseball 2002,
I love All-Star
Batman Vengeance, Crazy Taxi, Dave Mirra Freestyle BMX 2, Disney's Tarzan Untamed, Luigi's Mansion, Madden NFL 2002, NHL Hits 2002, Star Wars Rogue Leader Rogue Squadron 2, Super Monkey Ball, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3, and Wave Race Blue Storm.
So, in November 2001, Xbox released Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2. In November 2001, GameCube released Tony Hawk Pro Skater 3.
Correct.
Cool. Just want to make sure. Yeah. That makes sense because Xbox probably ported a bunch of old games trying to get developers on board.
Yeah, plus Tony Hawk 2 it's kind of like Silent Hill 2. It's like the one that everyone remembers fondly. Yeah. We can do the DS real quick. So the DS, November 2004, launch grade D. Titles available on launch day were Super Mario 64,
Great
DS, Asphalt Urban GT, The Urbs, Sims in the City, Feel the Magic, XYXX, Spider-Man 2, game. And Madden NFL 2005.
Feel the Magic sounds like a sex game because those are chromosomes.
Could well be. Super Mario 64 DS, obviously huge there. Spider-Man 2, always a good time. I'm not going to do the PSP. Should I do the Let's do the PSP. That's a surprising amount of games, actually. Let's do the PSP. So, March 2005, launch grade C. PSP had Ape Escape, On the Loose, Darkstalkers Chronicle, The Chaos Tower, Dynasty Warriors, Gretzky NHL, Lumines, Metal Gear Acid, which was shit, NBA, Need for Speed, Underground Rivals, NFL Street 2 Unleashed, Ridge Racer, Spider-Man 2, Tiger Woods PGA Tour, Tony Hawk's Underground 2 Remix, Twisted Metal Head On, Untold Legends, Brotherhood of the Blade, Wipeout Pure, and World Soccer Tour.
I own none of those. I own Star Wars Battlefront 2. I think is all I played on that. And then I owned... So here's another thing. I owned 8 Mile on UMD, for the PSP.
Oh man,
that's how I used to watch that movie.
That UMD.
I also had Good Charlotte stored on it too.
I jailbroke the shit out of my.
Yeah, I wasn't smart enough. PSP. Remember in 2000? Well, I guess I was born in 91. That would have been 14.
I just used it to play emulators by the end of it.
Yeah.
Xbox 360, November 2005, launch grade B. Unlike the launching of the original Xbox, the 360's lineup contained a noticeable dearth of first-party titles. Even sadder is the fact that Cameo and Perfect Dark Zero were duds, although in hindsight the Xbox 360 launch doesn't draw much excitement anymore. The 18 games listed garnered an average of 8.2 score from Game Informer, which sounds alright to me.
Perfect Dark Zero just was one of those games that, like, I remember playing it on the N64 and I was like so excited when Xbox 360 had it, and it just went...
Wasn't quite as good.
Yeah.
So, titles available on launch day: Amped 3, Call of Duty 2, Condemned, Criminal Origins, that was really good, FIFA 06, Gun, Cameo, Elements of Power, Madden NFL 2006, NBA 2K6, NBA Live 06, Need for Speed Most Wanted, NHL 2K6, Perfect Dark Zero, Peter Jackson's King Kong, Project Gotham Racing 3, Quake 4, Ridge Racer 6, Tiger Woods PGA Tour 06, and Tony Hawk's American Wasteland. That's not a poor lineup. That's not too bad.
No, I don't remember playing much of them.
Call of Duty 2,
I played
Criminal
sports.
Origins, Gun was great. Gun was really good, actually.
This was definitely when I was in my sports phase.
Need for Speed Most Wanted.
I remember renting some of these.
Yeah.
But I never actually owned them.
So that was for the Xbox 360. So let's talk about PlayStation 3, which was its enemy for a while there. November 2006, launch grade C. It took a while for developers to get a handle on making games for the system, making this launch lineup less than exceptional. Titles available on launch day: Call of Duty 3, Genji, Days of the Blade, turn the crab on his back for massive damage, Madden NFL 07, Marvel Ultimate Alliance, Mobile Suit Gundam, Crossfire, NBA 2K7, Need for Speed Carbon, NHL 2K7, Resistance Fall of Man, Ridge Racer 7, Tiger Woods PGA Tour 07, and Tony Hawk's Project 8. So it was so-so.
Yeah, I don't remember any of those.
Call of Duty was great. Call of Duty 3 was the game that got me into Call of Duty, and it still stands up. Resistance was great. Resistance Online with the PS3 was the first time I started regularly playing an online game, to the point where like every night I would like sneak in and play it. We're almost done, guys, but I think it's so fascinating to me, this stuff. Nintendo Wii, November 2006, launch grade B-, in what may be viewed as a portent of the casual audience that became the system's bread and butter. The Wii launch was not dominated by The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess, but rather by the pack-in title Wii Sports. Titles available on launch day for the Wii: Avatar, The Last Airbender, Call of Duty 3, Cars, Dragon Ball Z, Budokai Tenkaichi 2, Excite Truck, The Grim Adventures of Bill and Mandy, GT Pro Series,
That's
Happy
a typo.
Feet.
There should be Billy and Mandy.
Should it?
Yep.
The Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess, Madden NFL 07, Marvel Ultimate Alliance, Monster 4x4 World Circuit, Rampage, Total Destruction, Rayman Raving Rabbids, Red Steel, which was really cool, SpongeBob SquarePants, The Creature from the Krusty Krab, Super Monkey Ball, Banana Blitz, Tony Hawk's Downhill Jam, Trauma Center, Second Opinion, and Wii Sports was your packing.
I now remember why Tony Hawk took a break.
Yeah.
And they came back with not very much fanfare.
Wasn't a whole lot going on.
It was a technical
with
issue.
that. Let's talk 3DS real quick. Launch grade D, March 2011. Asphalt 3D, Bust-A-Move Universe, Combat of Giants, Dinosaurs 3D, Lego Star Wars 3, The Clone Wars, Nintendogs and Cats, Madden NFL Football, Pilot Wings Resort, Pro Evolution Soccer 3DS, Rayman 3D, Ridge Racer 3D, Samurai Warriors Chronicles, The Sims 3, Steel Diver, Super Street Fighter 4 3D Edition, and Super Monkey Ball 3D and Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon Shadow Wars. I always kind of wanted a 3DS, but
I had no desire.
I don't know.
I stopped playing handhelds. I stopped at the PSP was my last handheld I owned. New handheld.
I still have.
I've got a Game Boy SP, but
I mean, the Switch kind of counts, but let's talk about our next guy, PlayStation Vita, February 2012. Despite the sheer number of games, the Vita started out not having learned the lessons of the PSP, that you needed a killer app to draw people in.
It's still struggling with that.
Titles available on launch day: Army Corps of Hell, Asphalt Injection, Ben 10, Galactic Racing, Blaze Blue, Continuum Shift Extend, Dungeon Hunter Alliance, Dynasty Warriors Next, F1 2011, FIFA Soccer, Lumine's Electronic Symphony, Michael Jackson's The Experience, Plants vs. Zombies, Rayman Origins, Shinobido 2, Revenge of Zen, Tales of Space, Mutant Blobs, Touch My Katamari, Ultimate Marvel vs. I love that name. Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3, Virtual Tennis 4, and World Tour Edition. I always thought that Uncharted Golden Abyss or whatever was launch title for that.
That's one of those instances where it came out
Fucking should have been.
shortly after.
Yeah. All right. So far, what's your favorite? We're not done yet, but
I mean, Xbox is the one I remember the most. N64 is probably the one I put the most hours into between those two games.
yeah,
But Xbox is the one I remember the most.
kind of proof that you don't necessarily need
Quality.
So this is the last one we're going to do, because you guys are young enough to remember what came out with the PS4, the Xbox, and the Switch. So the Wii U. The Wii U benefited from a better third-party presence, even if some of the games had already been released on other systems. In general, the launch was about quantity rather than quality. It's telling that among the many games here, none of them made the case that the system's gamepad was indispensable. So the titles available on launch day for the Wii U were Assassin's Creed 3, Batman Arkham City Armored Edition, Ben 10 Omniverse, Call of Duty Black Ops 2, Darksiders 2, Epic Mickey 2, The Power of Two, FIFA 13, Funky Barn, Game Party Champions, Just Dance 4, Madden NFL 13, Mass Effect 3 Special Edition, Nano Assault Neo, NBA 2K13, New Super Mario Bros. U, Ninja Gaiden 3, Razor's Edge, Nintendo Land, Rabbids Land, Scribblenauts Unlimited, Sing Party, Skylanders, Giants, Sonic and All Stars Racing Transformed, Sports Connection, Tank. There was a game called Tank. Tekken Tag Tournament 2, Wii U Edition, Transformers Prime, Trine 2, Warriors Orochi 3, Hyper, Wipeout 3, Your Shape, Fitness Evolved 2013, and Zombie U.
Super Mario Brothers U was pretty much the only thing in there.
Yeah,
I mean,
Zombie U was touted pretty heavily, though.
Nintendo Land sucked.
I never tried it.
Your Shape Fitness Evolved, I had that on the Kinect, not the second one.
Yeah, I think Super Mario U was the only one. And the thing is, like, at least they tried to put Assassin's Creed on there and stuff, and Call of Duty Black Ops 2, Darksiders 2. But ultimately, when you're buying a new Nintendo console, you want Nintendo exclusives. So yes. Super Mario Bros. U was the only one there until, of course, they released... what do you call it? Mario Maker and some of the other stuff.
Smash.
Down the line, yeah. So that's a quick catch up on more retro console launch lineups, but it's fun to remember back as to like which ones were, you know, just shitty from the beginning and then just turned into monsters. You look at the PlayStation 2, and then if you get to the end of the PlayStation 2's life cycle and you pick like as many games as there were that launched with it, you could easily choose like 10 of the greatest games.
Well, it's like the Xbox 360 or the original Xbox. I mean, the original Xbox, if it wasn't Halo, it would be dead. But look what that ended up turning into with Xbox 360.
Yeah.
Xbox One has been selling great. Obviously, PS4 is just astronomically selling way higher, but it's not. Xbox One is not selling bad by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah.
So
launch titles are a fickle beast because they have no bearing on really what the console will become. Because they're almost always terrible.
It's always the title. It's always the titles around the holiday season that determine it, because that's when a lot of people buy them.
Yeah.
Like I know for me, like I said, I didn't get 64 at launch, but I got it for Christmas. Mm-hmm. Same thing with my PS4. I got my PS4 at launch. I got it at Christmas, and the reason I wanted it was when they showed The Division, which got delayed, and then Destiny, which sucked. So I had Madden.
Yeah, there you go. So, yeah, that's it for this week. Thank you for spilling your guts about your engineering passions. And then, of course, thank you for letting me spill my guts about my upbringing. Followed by the fun launch title sort of run through for those of you that are maybe too young to remember those games or just kind of wondered where a lot of them came from and how early they were in the cycle of those. How many of those launch games do you remember? How many of those launches do you remember?
N64 or newer.
That's you?
Yeah. Well, N64 is the one I remember. Xbox is the one I remember.
The only ones that I can like legitimately remember seeing all the games on the shelf were the Sega Saturn.
Because I remember The Rock.
My Mega Drive and stuff late. But
I remember the Xbox is The Rock. Because that was 2001, so I would have been 10.
Yeah.
Right in that video game. I remember it was a big deal when I got Halo because it was rated. I had to convince my mom to let me play it because it was rated M. And this was the only rated M game I was allowed to play until I sneaked Grand Theft Auto until she saw me. So I'm going to tell one story about Grand Theft Auto here real quick. I think I've told it before. But Grand Theft Auto, I think it's Vice City, I believe, was the one I rented. I don't remember. I just remember running around putting cheat codes in and blowing stuff up. So I rented it from Blockbuster. The disc kept getting read errors. So we took it back. But my mom wanted to come down and make sure it was like we were going back for a reason and not just me being whatever. And she saw what the game was. And she told me I had to get another game after that. Aww. So I never played it that day. Like I could literally play it for 15 minutes at a time and load it up, play 15 minutes, and it'd freeze. Load it up, play, and it'd freeze.
One of them disc cleaners.
I did. It didn't work. It didn't work. Yeah, the game was broken.
That sucks.
So
that
was my first. Remember that was my first GTA version or game that I played. Now I played a couple of GTA 5.
My first GTA was the first GTA, top down and everything. God, I'm old. Anyway, that's been your Level 2 podcast for this week. Thank you so much for listening and or watching the show. Don't forget that we had Codename Morpheus up yesterday, and 2 days ago we had Indy. Please add details too. You are more than welcome to go back and listen to those. They're a bit more focused than this podcast, which is just generally just us podcasting because we like it. Anything you want to add? No?
Not really.
Tired?
Yeah, I'm ready to go to bed.
Me too.
Let's be honest. I'm gonna go home and play Destiny.
Yeah.
I'm hungry, actually. That's what I'm at. I'm hungry. I'm gonna get some food.
I'm gonna order some emos or something. I think.
I might get something on the way home.
Thanks for paying attention for as long as you have. We love everybody. Thank you for your continued support. Please share this with your friends and stuff, and say, hey, these guys are kind of cool. If you think we're kind of cool. If not, that's totally fine. What are you doing? You stroking the mic with your beard? I don't know what he's doing. Anyway, we love you guys so much. Thanks a lot for watching, and as always,
welcome to the second level.
Bye-bye.
It ain't no game, but they saying welcome to the second level.